Domingo was speaking earlier, it really hit me, right? To know that when you start kindergarten now in public school, in Community School District 30, one of the most diverse school districts in the entire country, you are going to have something for college and career. And so now in this school district, there are more than 13,000 students, and we started this in school district 34 years ago. There are now 13,000 students that have a scholarship account for college and career. These are about 95% of kindergartners, first, second, and third graders across the district. And now I don't know if there's any folks from Queensbridge in this Zoom room here. But I know Queensbridge has been such a big part of the MAP program. And so I wanted to just shout out some Queensbridge statistics to make it really real. Now, obviously, Queensbridge is the largest development, as I'm sure you all are very familiar with. So in Queensbridge, there are, at this point, that video was done in November. So there are 340 students in Queensbridge that now have a scholarship account. And folks have also in Queensbridge started to save some of their own money towards it. And so it's about the scholarship account that you get when you start, where you get $100 and you can earn some additional money. And then you can also open up your own account. So in Queensbridge alone, 340 students with around $130,000 already across all those students. And that is obviously one piece of the school district. Across the whole school district, there's about $5 million across those $13,000 accounts. Yeah. I think, Raz, I'll leave it there because there's so much more to say, but I can talk about that when we get to the networks piece. So thank you all.
Great. Thank you. And I know there will be questions about how do I get this in my school district? What is the expansion? And we will absolutely get to that. It's an incredible program. To be able to have, I know in my life, didn't have those college savings in kindergarten or first grade. It's just, and it's an incredible way for the community to come together to support children. And so it's not just about the parents, it's about everybody loving on these students. So next, I would like us to hear from Niani. Niani, can you tell us about you? What is Food Business Pathways and what are you doing now? And how did you establish and grow your business? And how has that impacted your life? Niani.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. That is a loaded couple of questions to do in 5 minutes, but I'm gonna try. It's been wonderful to hear about the great work that's happening inside of NYCHA with all these great organizations. And so I'm just happy to be included. And I'll give you a little bit of information about myself. I'm Niani Taylor, born and raised out here in Brownsville, Brooklyn, East New York. That's my hometown. I went to school out here. I fought out here. I had fun out here, and I'm just Brooklyn, New York City all day. But the hard part about New York City is that the work ethic is just overwhelming. So as much as I had great jobs, I just didn't have the economic stability that this conference is talking about, because being an employee just was unstable. And if I wanted to progress, I had to have an entrepreneur mindset. So it wasn't until I finished college and I was able to see an opportunity with New York City Housing Authority Food Business Pathways in 2015 as a vehicle, as an opportunity to help get me the training. So it was an 8-week intensive training business, like a business accelerator. And then at the end of that, you had to present your company to get scholarship in order to get funding to be able to sustain the first year. And I was a recipient of that. So I got off to a great start with the help of New York City Housing Authority, Small Business Services, and also the Resident Economic Empowerment and Sustainability. They have been a partnership for all of NYCHA entrepreneurs, as we're called, to keep the program going. And so I was working full time when I was taking the classes. I was working full time when I started doing my business. I was let out of my job in 2019, be full time let me see, and it was able to give me the opportunity to work Munch hours full time, but I was prepared for that. The reason I started Munch hours was because I was not going to go back to another job. If this job was ending for me, through no fault of my own, companies go through a lot of HR changes that have nothing to do with you being a star employee or sometimes being the worst. And I was always caught up in the echo changes of a company where they had to let go of headcount. And so my rebuttal to that, so that I can still be economically viable in my city, New York, was to be an entrepreneur. So the support that I got from the agency and then my determination to survive as an independent business is really a culmination of drive, ambition, and a sink or swim. You really give yourself no other option once you make the decision. So I have, you said that I've grown. I feel like I'm still stuck a little bit, but I have grown because my business has gotten a lot more exposure. I've become minority woman business entrepreneur certified. I've gotten partnerships with commercial kitchens, and I just recently closed the deal with the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to supply meals for them. So this has been ongoing commitment and relentless work, but I also couple it with community service. So I work in my community. I'm on the board of the East New York Community Land Trust. I'm a member of a community garden, a BIB, Newborn Learning Garden, which is a partnership with City Parks Foundation. I'm about community service. And so when I made that my company's mission, I think that's what's grown to the economic stability, because it's about making sure people have employment and people eat healthy. So that's my story.
Niani, it's an incredible story, and I love it, as you know, and I'm sure it's inspiring to many people. And I just want to shout out, because Niani said it quickly, that her most recent success is it's not only that she's making meals for the DOHMH. What she was able to do was go through the city's procurement process and get a contract with the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene to provide 100 meals a night to one of the DOHMH COVID vaccination sites in New York City. So she is a frontline essential worker, providing and caring for other frontline essential workers, but going through the city's procurement process. It is not an easy process. It takes an incredible amount of tenacity, and she did it, which means that if she did it, I can do it, you can do it, and it's an incredible story. So Niani, we'll come back to you to hear a little bit more, but you weren't shouting out yourself enough, so I needed to do that a little bit. So now, finally, we are going to move to my dear friend, Quardean. And Q, so many people know who you are and what the Youth Design Center is, but many don't. We're in a huge city. So can you just talk a little bit about what is the Youth Design Center and your personal story to creating it and why this was important to you? We'll start there. And as I said, again, I'll come back to all of you for kind of a longer term discussion on economic stability. But Q, like, what's your story? What's the YDC and what is it doing?
Thank you, Raz. Happy to be here. So I grew an interest in design at an early age, wanting to impact my community through design, particularly walking around seeing vacant lots and having had one traumatic incident due to gun violence in my family associated with a vacant lot, and wanting to see those spaces have a higher use, understanding that spaces in our community are the things that inform social interactions. And so I wanted to be an architect, and I went to two predominantly white institutions, SUNY Buffalo and at Harvard grad school design, and I was often the only Black man in the room of most of my classes. And so what I realized then, that was the first provocation, that less than 2% of licensed architects were Black. I hadn't met a Black architect until I was 21, and less than 3% of licensed architects are Latinx. And it's still a very white male-dominated field. That led me down to starting to provoke why that was for that industry, but also STEM in general. 9% STEM workers are Black, 7% Latinx. They're still very white and male-dominated, and so I wanted to understand what pathways there were that could increase diversity, both in the institutions, but particularly in the industries. And I came back to my community, wanted to do that work. I found an organization that was doing work around community visioning, and understood from the visioning sessions within the organization that 1 in 4 young people were not in school, not working. And so that was the other provocation, the other impetus to say, okay, well, if that's the case, what institutions do we have here that can solve the direct problem of getting young people paid? And I looked around, and Brownsville Community Justice Center was working really well in the space of court-involved young people and getting those young people paid. But then other parents were like, but that's not for my child. Where can my child go? And so started what was then called Made in Brownsville, that has become the Youth Design Center, which is a nonprofit creative agency and innovation hub. We're working to increase access to STEAM professions for young people through paid apprenticeship in digital media arts and tech, right? So we have a couple of programs, including our core program, the Creative Apprenticeship Program, which is training and employment and in collaboration with mentors that inspires a range of solutions to projects addressing local challenges. We started last year with another organization out of East New York called Americana Tech, a tech summer camp, where we're training young people in skills in tech and web development. We also have a program called YDC EDU, where institutions can come and work with us, and we provide curriculum and teaching artists to them so that they can work with youth populations across the city. And then we started, as a response to the pandemic, YDC workshops, which are digital offerings in digital media, virtual offerings in digital media, to upskill folks within our community. And even abroad, we had people from Ireland and London participating in these free workshops around, intro to HTML and CSS and how to use Photoshop and things of that nature. So been doing that for about 7 years. This will be the 8th year. Our core program has taken young people on career exposures to the New York Times and Herman Miller and Airbnb's offices and Shop, an architecture firm in the city that's built skyscrapers. Our young people out of the Creative Apprenticeship Program, their income within the first 6 months after the program has increased on average by $933 a month. 50% of our alumni have started their own businesses in photography, creative services. They've done videography, creative services for multiple clients across the city. And then the real kind of like highlight of the work is our creative agency then is able to hire our young people as freelancers, our alumni as freelancers, to work for around people's creative projects. So we've done work for multiple city agencies. We did a promotional video for the Bezos Family Foundation recently. We've done promotional material for
Hey, Quardean might have, oh, there you are.
As well as the industry.
You just froze for.
Oh, okay. All of these, it says my connection is unstable. Can you hear me? So yeah, so we've been doing that for 7 years. We've built a number of partnerships and inroads for internships for our young people. Currently, we're working with NBC Universal and Microsoft and Facebook and New York Times and so forth and so on to increase economic mobility for young people that go through our program.
Thank you, Q. So I think, there's so much stuff that comes out of what Q said. I'm sure one thing that folks really heard, or two things that folks really heard, is one of the outcomes for young people is that it put real money in young people's pockets every month, right? Going through the program, getting an internship, working, who really put real money in people's pockets. The name of the organization is the Youth Design Center. Quardean put the website in the chat. I'm sure he's happy to do that again. But also that it is exposing young people to new paths, new career paths, and new opportunities. And it is incredibly place-based. So in our remaining time, I'm going to go back down our panelist list. And I think what is common among all of them, and Debra-Ellen said this at the beginning, is these are incredibly bold ideas backed by incredibly bold people who are harnessing the power that already exists in incredibly bold communities. So Debra-Ellen, can you talk a little bit about how New York City Kids Rise will impact long-term wealth building, like what could be the effect on young people as they become adults as a result? And also, I'm sure folks want to know, what is the plan for expanding the program?
Yes. So, all right. So here we are in Western Queens, right? There's 13,000 families, 95% of all kindergartners, first, second, and third graders in public school, charter or district schools now have a scholarship account. That means there's now a mechanism for more money to be put into these accounts. So, like I've spent so much time talking to my friend. I don't live in NYCHA. I have many friends who do, and just talking about what does it mean? What does it mean to be a springboard for economic opportunity? We talk about, in Queensbridge, talk to my friends. How is it that when I move to Queensbridge, if I live in Queensbridge, I know my kid is going to achieve whatever they want to achieve, whether they want to be a designer, whether they want to, be the president, whether they want to be a scientist, whatever. And so now, you live in Queensbridge, you're going to have some money for college, no matter, or career or whatever, no matter what you're going to do. So that really changes a trajectory. I mean, I don't need to tell you all this, right? Knowing you have something from the beginning. And then what also is happening in Queensbridge, and again, I wish April were here to talk about it, or Bishop Taylor, or other folks, but I'll do my best, that basically Jacob Riis Neighborhood Settlement House, they are now working to make sure families see their accounts so that they know they have something. April talked about in her video, the Tenants Association, oftentimes that they are talking about this to make sure that folks are spreading the word about financial education. In the school down the street at PS 111, they are doing college and career activities so that kids also get the financial education in the classroom. And then there's tons of workshops that Urban Upbound is doing, which is nestled right at the center of Queensbridge through their Financial Empowerment Center, making sure people, again, think about really financial planning and how that all connects. So our estimates are that folks will have thousands and thousands of dollars. Kids will have thousands and thousands of dollars by the time they graduate high school. And again, this isn't something that folks would just get when they're about to graduate, or maybe circumstances have sort of derailed because of different things. They haven't gone on to, to get their GED or graduate. This, because something from the beginning, the hope is that you're going to have more hope, that there's something really there for you. I know someone mentioned in the chat about free college. All I can say is yes, 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 right? This is something that is supplemental to tuition. This can be used for books. It can be used for Metro card. This is something else. And I just want to add one more piece, is that this is about initially everyone gets money to start, $100. That may not sound like a lot, may sound like a lot. Families are encouraged to save what they can. Nadia in the video, she lives in Astoria Houses. She mentioned that, the Astoria Houses Resident Association, and Ms. Koger mentioned it as well, is that they actually launched a campaign to raise $1,000. This is obviously a huge goal for every child in Astoria houses that has these accounts. So now that you have the accounts, there's a mechanism to add more money to it. And these kids, again, kindergarten, first, second, and third graders, there's going to be many more years for that account to grow in interest because it's invested in the market. And so I am so thrilled to announce that Ms. Colger and the Resident Association, with a lot of support from a lot of networks. And so, you know, if there's not time, we can talk more about networks, but I'm also happy to talk offline about that. But so many people came together from this broader community of Astoria, of the Safer College Program community, of school communities to help raise this $184,000. And in 2 weeks, actually February 6th, I'm gonna make sure, I guess if you all sign up, I'll make sure in the chat you can sign up if anyone is interested. We're working with the Astoria Houses Resident Association to really do this huge community celebration where families are going to be then getting the $1,000 in these accounts, and that's on top of the money they already earned. So I think just in the headline here is that, you know, we're in Western Queens now. This is a tool for community to use. Would be a tool for your organizations to use, that I am in service to you. That's our work. And it's going to look different in different communities. And it's all about really every expectation happening. And the hope is that people, again, kids will have real money by the end of this. But that also, it's just the reinforcement along the way and the expectations that so much what you all are doing through MAP as part of this, that it is amplifying that further, or giving another tool, really. It's really not even amplifying, it's giving you all another tool to do what you're already doing in your community.
Raz, you're muted.
Sorry, folks. In the interest of time, I'm going to move on to Niani, but Debra-Ellen, there are a few questions in the chat that you may want to answer in the chat that are about where's the money held, what happened if a bank is no longer there, and then is this only in Queens? So maybe you could answer those in the chat. And then Niani would love to ask you, what would you say to people who are interested in entrepreneurship and starting their own business? What kind of networks and support did it take for you to be able to take that step and create your own business and create your own path?
Okay. Well, again, it takes, you have to believe in the failure just as much as you want to believe in the success. That you have to learn what you don't know, but take the risk to do it anyway and learn as you go along. So I would say if you had the luxury, and I didn't have the luxury, I just had a determination that I didn't want to sit in front of another HR person to be interviewed. I had a college degree, I had skills, but I was still, I guess, in my estimation of myself, still trying to peddle my smarts for compensation. And I needed to use the smarts that I invested in of going to school on myself. And the training that I learned and the work that I have done and the work that I've done in offices across New York City has to be at least the training for me to be able to work for myself. So I would say that, you know, New York City Housing Authority was unique because they partnered with the Small Business Service Center, Economic Development Center, some private partners, some nonprofits like Start Small, Think Big, and they all unified to help residents of NYCHA in all 5 boroughs. So if you are serious about the challenges, because it was a hard the first couple of years were very challenging because my idea of success was supposed to be faster. You understand? It's still, you believe that if you started, or at least I did, I believe that once I started it, then everything would just come in. But the details and the ignorance of the details that I didn't have, I needed to fumble a little bit before I got there. And then there was the bumpers that Reese gave us, which was business mentoring and more workshops and more reach outs to us to find out how we were getting along and how they can support us post the program. Because it's one thing to be like, all right, you guys now have a business, but once you release us into the world, the competition of real business is fierce. and you're like, I really don't know how to maneuver in, say, like, you know, when I did my MWBE certification, which you're right, it's a very intensive process, but my business had to show growth in order to get to the qualification process of an MWBE. So I would say be committed to yourself and committed to your outcome, but be flexible about how you'll get there. And don't be afraid to say you don't know. You don't know how to do something, because it's an expensive lesson if you throw money at things that you don't understand. It's just too expensive. So that's my best advice.
Niani, thank you so much. And what I'm hearing too from both Niani and Debra-Ellen, and I will ask you of this too, that it's not only kind of be bold, believe in the idea. And Niani, I love what you said about failures. Be open to the failures as much as you are open to what you are perceiving to be the successes, because even the failures can be successes if you learn from that. And that both of you also talked about the power of partnerships, whether it's the community, whether it's institutions in the community, residents, whether Niani, it's SBS, the different city agencies that kind of worked with you. And so to Quardean, and we have about 4 minutes left in our session, Quardean, kind of the same question to you. Like, what has been that kind of power of, whether it's partnerships or networks, or the importance of linkages to grow and expand what you're doing at the Youth Design Center, and knowing that kind of where you ended up might not be exactly where you thought you would be when you began. And so if you can talk a little bit about that, the power of partnerships and networks, and how that has and will increase the economic stability for young people who participate in your program. Yep, we got 3 minutes left. Okay, Q, you're up.
Well, I mean, one thing that we're doing now under a program, Robin Hood Foundation, called Mobility Labs, is we're able to partner with other local organizations in a consortium, including the Brownsville Community Justice Center and Central Brooklyn Economic Development Corporation and the Community Board and Jobs First, to come up with a economic mobility plan, engaging other community partners in creating a business incubator that helps to support things like food insecurity, and creating kind of like worker cooperatives for those types of initiatives in our community, right? And the ability to be able to leverage our internal capacity as a community, as opposed to kind of like always having to go and venture out of our community, being able to leverage Youth Design Center's expertise in being able to train young people and older folks as well, leveraging the Central Brooklyn Economic Development Corporation's ability to get young people OSHA certified and with GEDs, right? Like, we've actually had linkages in which young people have gone from our program to their program and gone directly into employment because of those things, right? And it's the success of the program really leans on and is bolstered by organizations communicating on the ground with each other, first and foremost, such that we're creating the best pathways for outcomes. But outside of that, yes, it's great to have like corporate partners, and that's something that we're currently just like venturing into with these linkages with Microsoft and NBC and Apple and the like, whose networks extend far beyond our organizational reach, but can support our mission and our work by amplifying our voice and our young people and our mission. So you know, both are beneficial. 30 seconds. You're muted.
I'm clearly hitting Zoom fatigue. So in our now 20 seconds left or whatever, just I think on behalf of everyone, I want to thank our 3 panelists so much for joining us. I think we all felt that you brought your bold ideas, your passion, but also that you had a real plan.